Welcome to another episode of Mike at the Museum. Now, in a previous episode, I talked about how the City of Centralia raised a bunch of money to move a train locomotive from the center of town out to Fairview Park on the west edge of town. Now, what if I told you, though, in 1942, the City of Centralia raised a whole bunch of money to help purchase a B-17 Flying Fortress to help defeat Germany during World War II? Would you believe me? Well, we did. Here's the story. Okay, before I go any further, I just want you to understand that this really isn't a story about how Centralia raised $159,000 plus to get their name put on the bomber. This is a story of what happened to the bomber afterwards. Because there was one with the City of Centralia name on it, and then it kind of disappeared. Now, sources, couple of places once again. Centralia Sentinel, 2 articles written by Mike Jones, one published in 1997, the other published in 2003, and then anything left over came from the archives here at the museum. Now, the 1997 article really got started when a gentleman by the name of Robert wrote a letter. In 1942, the people of Centralia gathered their money together to provide $159,985.25 to the United States government to help purchase a bomber. Now, the U.S. government had a campaign called Buy a Bomber, which, if a city could raise enough money to help purchase a plane, the city would get its name on the plane. In 1942, a B-17 bomber was titled City of Centralia, Illinois, which was painted on the plane's nose. I mean, come on. How more patriotic than having a bomber that's dropping bombs on the Nazis? Okay, before I go any further, I just want you to understand that this really isn't a story about how Centralia raised $159,000 plus to get their name put on the bomber. This is a story of what happened to the bomber afterwards. Because there was one with the City of Centralia name on it, and then it kind of disappeared. Now, sources, couple of places once again. Centralia Sentinel, 2 articles written by Mike Jones, one published in 1997, the other published in 2003, and then anything left over came from the archives here at the museum. Now, the 1997 article really got started when a gentleman by the name of Robert wrote a letter. In Robert's letter, it is noted that a gentleman by the name of Bert sent him a picture of the B-17 bomber and asked him to see if he could find out what happened to the plane. Robert goes on to say in his letter that he went to the Centralia Sentinel and gave a picture of the B-17 to Mike Jones. Mike Jones was at that time a reporter for the local newspaper. Robert went on to say that he never heard back from Mr. Jones, but later on January 26, 1997, saw an article Mr. Jones had written titled Fate of Centralia's World War II Bomber Unknown. The 1997 article was about the money Centralia raised to get the plane named after the city, and then about how historians were unable to trace what had happened to the plane. In his letter, Robert next mentions the March 20th, 2003 article that appeared in the Centralia Sentinel, again written by Mike Jones, that was titled Centralia Bomber Mystery Solved, or Is It? Now, this article is mostly about the efforts of a Mr. Brimberry from the nearby city of Alma and his research to find evidence of what happened to the City of Centralia, Illinois plane. Mr. Brimberry apparently obtained some documents from some internet research which appeared to show that the bomber was renamed Troubleshooter and was lost on October 14, 1943 in a bombing raid on a ball bearing factory over Schweinfurt, Germany. He goes on to say that the crew survived being shot down but spent the rest of the war as prisoners of war. Now comes the tough part. One of the big issues is getting the plane's serial number. There is only one photo of the plane, and the serial number is very hard to read. Now, the article says that a number of ways were tried, even including enlarging it on a computer. But there was still some questions about whether or not the serial number on the plane was correct. Let's start with the bad news. Now, if the serial number of 42-30135 that they got off the picture is incorrect,
then the story is going to stop right here, as we may never know what really happened to the plane. Now, the good news, and I say that and I don't really mean good news because let's be honest, the plane getting shot down, the crew being taken prisoner is not good news. But just as far as the plane,
if that serial number is correct, then records show the last mission was October 14th, 1943, over Schweinfurt, Germany. This is backed up by the work of Mrs. Holloway, who worked in the reference department at the Centralia Library. She emailed the Boeing plant in Wichita, Kansas, and received a reply that said a plane with the serial number of 42-30135 was delivered to the Air Force on April 15, 1943, and then their records listed the plane as having crashed in Schweinfurt, Germany in October of 1943. One other bit of information. Why was the plane apparently renamed Troubleshooter? I mean, Centralia paid $159,000. Why not leave the name? Well, I have read that captains of many of these planes had the right to change the name of their plane if they wanted to. Now, records show that the plane was originally named City of Centralia, Illinois, but sometime around June 6, 1943, for a mission over Bremen, Germany, it had been renamed the Troubleshooter, a name that lasted until the last mission over Schweinfurt, Germany in October of that same year.
Before I bring this episode to an end, there is some additional information that I'd like to share with you.
We have this picture of the City of Centralia, Illinois bomber, and I noticed that underneath was a typed note. Now, this note said that the movie 12 O'Clock High, starring Gregory Peck, is about a World War II air raid in which B-17 bombers were shot down over Germany. Now, the note goes on to say that the bomber named City of Centralia, Illinois, was one of those bombers. So, I went to investigate. I found an article on the World War II National Museum in New Orleans website. The article is called Black Thursday, October 14, 1943, the second Schweinfurt bombing raid. Now, this was a mission flown on October 14, 1943, in what became known as Black Thursday. The 8th Air Force 1st and 3rd Air Divisions flew from bases in East Anglia, Great Britain, and attacked German ball bearing factories 400 miles away in Schweinfurt, Germany. By the time the Americans returned home, they had lost 60 B-17s, another 17 were no longer airworthy, and an additional 121 received minor damage.
That was only the material loss. The total number of air crew that were killed, wounded, or missing in action totaled to be almost 600. That total turns out to be 20% of all the men who took part in this second bombing raid.
And yes, the B-17 named Troubleshooter was one of the bombers lost in this raid.
But again, we're right back to the same issue. Unless it can be verified that the serial number on the plane named City of Centralia, Illinois, is a match to the plane, the Troubleshooter, then we can only assume that it is the same plane that was shot down over Schweinfurt, Germany. That's something we may never know. So there you go. What do you think? Well, as for me, I'm going with the certainty that the serial number on the plane, City of Centralia, Illinois, was the same one on the Troubleshooter, which was the plane that got shot down on the bombing run. Once again, can we prove that? 100% no. But that's what I'm going to go with. How about you? What do you think? And that is the story of the B-17 bomber that had been titled the City of Centralia, which may have been renamed Troubleshooter and then was shot down over Schweinfurt, Germany in October of 1943. What'd you think? Did you like that story? Well, if you like these videos that we're putting out, please do me a favor. comment on them, like, subscribe to the channel, as we try and put out a video at least once a month. Now, if you want to come down to the museum and see all the wonderful artifacts that we have here, whether it be something I've mentioned in a couple of these videos, or you just want to come and look, please do so. The museum is open Wednesday and Fridays, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and on Saturdays, we are open 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.